Searching the coordinates to the BFG 10,000 now.
You can't just shoot a hole into the surface of Mars.
What is going on, my fellow nerds? Operator Otter here, and today we're going to be discussing the boss rotation for the cast on CoC Arc Stormweaver, as this has been the most requested thing I've been asked in my streams as to actually how to perform this boss rotation, because it is a rather intricate and complicated combo as we fulfill Jonathan's vision. So without further ado, let's get started. First things first, there are two necessary breakpoints in order for this combo to function very well, and the first one is going to be your actual critical hit chance. So you want to look at Spark or Arc. I would just look at Spark because they both share the same base hit crit chance. You want the base critical hit chance to be 50%. It needs to be higher than 50%. You do not want pinpoint critical in it. You put pinpoint, it'll go over 80. Without pinpoint critical or any other modifiers, it's just over 50%. You need that. That's the very first thing that you need. And then you're going to put inevitable critical into this, and we're going to do some calculations as to why this is necessary with the Unleash to cause this. So let's actually talk about that. Now, the reason that we actually need these crit rates to be where they are is because we're actually trying to cause what's known as kind of like an elongated or infinite chain. It's not infinite. It can't happen infinitely, but it's going to be elongated to a point where we can confidently drain our entire mana pool very quickly with this. And let's explain exactly what's happening. So we're going to be running Unleash in our arc, right? And what Unleash is doing is that when we cast it, it's going to cast another 2 casts of our arc. Essentially what this is doing is this is tripling the amount of damage instances that are happening. We don't care about the damage that this arc is doing. What we care about is how many damage instances this is actually going to cause in turn with the crit, with the cast on crit. So what happens here is that we do an Unleashed arc. There's our first arc, and you're saying 2 pulses. You're like, that's confusing. Well, not really. What's happening is that there's a pulse for each shock that's on the target. Since we can double shock a target, that means we can actually double pulse a target. Yes, this has been tested. Yes, this has been confirmed. We double pulse the target. It's pretty sick, all right? So what happens here is then we have our second arc and our third arc from our Unleash because of how that functions. This gives us a total of 9 damage instances. These 9 damage instances are going to have a 59% crit hit rate because of the 50% that we said. With inevitable critical, it's going to give us another 100%. 100% of our arc is 9%, so it just turns it to 59%, which turns it to a 5.31 amount of crits that we're going to get, so we'll round it down to 5. Then we have our Orb of Storms. Our orbs are both going to attack once, but then every single time there is a spell that is cast through the orb or near it, it will bolt out. And since there are 3 that are being cast, because we have our 1, 2, 3, each orb is going to let out 3. And there's 2 of them, so they let out a total of 6. So we get 6 plus 2, 8, and they're at 56% crit. So this is 4. So we get a total of 9 crits. These 9 crits are what's going to generate our cast on crit. With our modifiers in our cast on crit being 20, it's going to be multiplied by the 57% that is going to be on the actual cast on crit gem, which is right here, as well as the 15% additive that is in dynamism here. So it's 72%. This 72% will be multiplied to the 20, which is 34.4. This means that we need 3 crits in order to be over 100 to cause a triggered arc cast. Because we have 9, we are able to cause 3 triggered arc casts. Now, when these arcs comes out, because we are running pinpoint critical in the cast on crit arcs, they actually have a higher crit rate than the original arcs that we had, being at 80.78. So we'll just put in 80%. But what happened, or 80.5%. So we have the exact same thing. We triggered 3 arcs, which is exactly what we had up here. And then we have our orbs, which are doing the exact same thing. And so we caused 7 crits and 4, which is 11. This 11 is bigger than the original 9. Which causes a elongated chain. It just cycles and engines itself into being able to do this. Now, this only happens if we're actually able to get 9 crits off of the initial blast. And this does not always happen. Sometimes it misses, and sometimes you're not going to have a big boom cycle. But more often than not, I would say 80 to 90% of the time, you're usually able to get 9 crits off within the 17 hits that you're able to do when your crit rate is high enough. And this is why we need that specific crit hit rate, so that we can cause an elongated chain to basically infinitely drain our mana all the way down to 0 as quickly as possible, while we are sitting in Tempest with it being buffed with all of that damage bonus from the actual Tempest additive. Now, the second breakpoint isn't really a breakpoint to make it function per se. It's just a breakpoint, I'm going to say, because the damage that you're going to get until you hit this just isn't going to feel all that great, and that's just going to be your actual mana pool. You want to get your total mana pool to around 2200. 2200 is where it starts to feel good. Between 2200 and 2500, if you're able to get the difference of only 300 mana, the difference in damage is actually 40% multiplicative. Yes, if you have 300 more mana, you are going to do 40% more damage. I know that sounds wild, and how in the world can that happen? But I promise you that's what's happening. That's a pretty rough train of math to get there, but just trust me, mana is really important, and you want your mana to be as high as possible. So try to get it above 2200. It's not needed per se, but you're really going to start feeling the improvements of how the burst cycle feels when you actually hit that 2200 mana mark. All right, so now we're going to go through our skills, and we're going to go through it in terms of the rotation. So this is kind of foreshadowing what our rotation will be. The first one is going to be Sigil of Power, which is going to have persistence and magnified effect. We're just going to make it last longer, and we're going to make it bigger. Sigil of Power is a passive that you can get on a chiming staff. And what it does is that when you place it down, every single time you spend 50% of your mana in it, you're going to gain a stage. There's one stage, there's another stage, there's the final stage. On the final stage, you're going to have 60% multiplicative more damage. You get 15% per. And the way that we're going to play this out is we're going to put down our Sigil of Power, and then we're just going to blast our curses until we get to this stage right here, and then we'll go through our rotation. It will fully empower, and then we're going to have 60% more multiplicative damage to allow our burst to be as strong as possible. From here, we're going to actually do the curse, which is conductivity, and we're going to be using focused curse and heightened curse. Now, the thing about the curse and how it's working is that this is actually going to be a second weapon set. This is going to be the green, as you see here when I swap weapons. We are going to be using our staff to input all of these curse magnifiers, and the reason that we do this is how cursing and exposing is actually affecting the target. Now, if you do not understand how penetration, resistance cuts, exposure, stuff like that does not work, then I'm going to point you to this video here where I talk about that. That link will be in the description below. You can go ahead and click on that. It will bring you to that video and explain basically how exposure and resistant cutting is working and why this is so powerful on a target like Zesht, who has 75% all res as well as 75% toughness, which means this dude just takes 92% reduced damage, period. We want to be able to take one of those completely down and actually throw his resistances in the negative, so we can actually even do even more damage against him. And we can do that when we use conductivity with our exposure, but we really need our curses to be empowered, and we're going to be doing this through a weapon swap with the second weapon set of points to be able to empower our curses. From here, the next skill that we're going to be using is Voltaic Mark. This is something that's actually found in the Rangers. We want to use this because what it's doing is that's giving us 50% more chance to shock, as well as 45% increased effect of shock on the enemy. This is going to give us about a 12% multiplicative damage increase, as well as just increasing the chance to actually get the double shock on the target before we actually go into our rotation. It is just free damage. Now, I understand that it requires 52 dex, but you're going to need 73 dex just to wear Malagaros, so it just works, right? It's just free. Why not put it on? Now, we don't need to add ranks to this, because as you add ranks, the only thing that's going to be affected is the actual base damage of the lightning damage on the Nova when you kill a target. It does not affect the chance to shock nor the increased effect of the shock. So you can just put in a level 7 Voltaic Mark and you are just good to go right from there. From here, we're going to be doing a double cast of Orb of Storms, which is going to be using Overabundance. We're going to need 2 Orb of Storms in order to do this. The reason why we run Overabundances is, yeah, we need 2. Because with 2, we're going to be able to double the effect of what's happening when we cast the arcs through them to actually create more damage instances for that cast on crit engine that I was talking about. After that, we're going to be using Conduction. This is just going to increase the chance to actually shock the target. Then we're going to be running Lightning Explosion that says that when we shock the target, we are now going to be able to actually put lightning exposure on the target. And as you just watched from that video, how exposure and how resistance cutting work, it's very, very important that we do that with strip away, which is just going to increase the effect of the exposure cutting. And then we're going to run Font of Mana, which is going to give us some mana regeneration. We've gone through our cycle. We're going to walk through those Orb of Storms. And it's going to actually increase our mana regeneration to get back up to full so we can go back into another damage cycle. Okay, from here, we're going to do this is the big one, which is the actual manual cast arc. So with the manual cast arc, what we're doing is we're obviously running Unleash because we want those extra damage instances. Now, after this, what's going to happen is we're going to put Inevitable Critical into it. This is going to give us another 9% crit onto the arc, which we need. We need high crit. So we need more crit. We need more damage instances. Cool. Now, from here, we want to add damage, but we want to be careful about how we add damage, because what happens with adding damage in this game is that usually what happens more often than not is that with damage multipliers, we also get cost multipliers. So if we look at something like Considered Casting, this gives us 35% more damage, but it also puts a cost multiplier of 115% on it. Now, this is really important for us because the thing about it is that we are going to drain our mana from full to zero in literally that fast, right? So we want to get as many arc cast off as possible rather than increasing necessarily the damage. If something is doing 25% more damage but also costs 25% more mana, then it just literally does the same as what it did before, right? It doesn't necessarily make sense. The only time this makes sense is it is able to deal more damage than the cost multiplier, and there are very few things in this game that we can actually get that from, and even when they do that, we can actually hit specific breakpoints where we can get an extra cast off and actually throw our damage even higher. So when we're talking about arc, we really want to be able to not have anything that makes arc cost more, but makes arc hit harder, if that makes sense. So let's talk about what we're doing here to do that. All right, so the first gem that we're going to use is Ambrosia, which says that supported skill consumes 20% of your maximum mana flash charges on use, and the supported skill is going to gain 3% of damage as extra lightning damage per mana flash charge consumed. Well, my mana flash charge has 96 charges, so 20% of that is going to be 19. 19 times 3 is going to be 57% damage as extra lightning damage, and that is a lot of damage, which is awesome because I barely use this manual cast arc throughout the dungeon. I usually use it for the boss, and even if I do use it throughout the dungeon, using it once every 30 to 45 seconds, I am totally fine on my mana flash. This is a very, very strong support skill that's here, and as you can see, there is no cost multiplier. From here, we're going to go into Concentrated Effect. Now, you may be confused. You're like, wait, this is 30% more area damage, and Arc doesn't do area damage. No, the actual Arc doesn't, but the Pulse does. So if I take this out and I look at Pulse, you can see the average damage per use is 15,831. As soon as I put this in and go back to Pulse, now it's 20,578. So the Concentrated Effect actually does modify the Pulse, and since Pulse is going to be dealing around roughly 55% of our total damage, increasing our damage by 30% is going to be increasing our damage by roughly 16% multiplicative, which is a very strong multiplier when it doesn't actually have a cost multiplier to it. So these are the reasons why we run those in our arc. We want to keep our arc cheap, but we also want to increase the damage that it can deal without increasing the cost of the actual mana when we cast it. Now from here, what we're going to do is we're going to actually talk about the cast on critical arc. This is going to be our highest damage arc. This is when you're going to want to have the level from the corruption. It's going to be as high as possible that you can get. This is going to be the majority of our damage. Now when we're going through the dungeon, we're actually going to run impetus here and pinpoint critical and arc, because now spark is going to crit all of the time, and then we can get a lot more energy, which means there's going to be a lot more arcs going out. And this is going to be okay because we're going to be running a gem that gives us this 2% mana on kill, and we can just regenerate mana. But when we're against the boss, this doesn't work because we're not killing the boss. We're damaging the boss, we're not killing him, so we don't get mana. So what we need to do is we're going to take impetus out. We're going to swap pinpoint critical up here to increase the critical hit chance of this arc up to 80% now. And because our triggered arcs are doing the majority of our single target damage, this is a very good thing to do. From here, we're going to be running elemental focus because this gives us 25% more multiplicative damage for no cost. It's just we can't shock anymore. Well, because arc can't shock anyways, it's great. It's already inbuilt in the ability. It can't shock, so fantastic. It's just a free 25% damage multiplier. Then we're going to run Deliberation, which is a 20% damage multiplier without any cost multiplier. It just makes it so that we move slower. We don't care. We're sticking in tempos. Doesn't matter us. We're fine. From here, we're going to be running Inspiration. Now, why are we running Inspiration here? I'm going to point you out to this video here where I talk about what's going on with inspiration, conservative casting, mental toughness, all that good stuff. This is really going to lower the cost of this arc to be super, super cheap so that we can get off a bunch of them. We can get off like 9 of these arc casts boom, instantly with how this crit engine works. And that's essentially how we're going to blow up our target. So those are the gem choices for all of the skills and why we're doing that. Hope that made sense. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go over the actual rotation, and then I'll let you guys out from there. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the actual rotation. And here's the thing about the rotation. If you mess up in the slightest degree on this rotation, on any type of how you do it, you are going to nerf your damage by a factor of like 10. It's going to be very severe. You have to get this rotation down perfectly. And the way that I suggest doing this is that you get a breach stone. It costs like 40, 50 exalted orbs. You set aside a time like 2 to 3 hours, and you put in a tier 0 Zest. Nothing upgraded in that breach tree. All right, so when you go to your little breach tree over here, you need to make sure that everything is 0. Just blank all of this out and it says 0 out of 8. You can have infinite respawns on Zest when you do that. Get to Zest, take out your wand, take out your damage, go do one cycle just of like what you normally do. Don't need to like try to practice the damage. Just like, this is normally what I get. And you'll see it's like 200k. And then from there, practice this rotation over and over and over and over again until you can get it perfectly. It's going to be a very good practice tool that you can use to just infinitely sit there against Jesh, because you don't lose any XP against pinnacle bosses now. So you can just sit there and do that without losing any XP, and it's just a free reset button on practicing your damage rotations. This is how I was able to get a bunch of damage numbers and test damage when I was doing this. So that would be my suggestion. From here, let's actually talk about the literal rotation so that you can actually start one-shotting these bosses. Okay, so the very first thing that you're going to do is you're going to put down your Sigil of Power, and then you're just going to start spamming out your curse to fill that up to the 3rd stage. As you can see, I'm on my 3rd stage. I'm good to go. From here, I'm sucking down mana pots to get back up to full mana. As soon as the boss becomes targetable, boom, right there, I'm going to curse my target, cursed, and then I'm going to Voltaic mark him. As you can see, I've Voltaic marked. From here, you're going to put down 2 Orb of Storms. I put down my 2 Orb of Storms. I'm waiting for him to attack. When those 2 Orb of Storms come down, these are the things you're paying attention to. Is the target exposed? Is the target cursed? Does the target have 2 of the shocks? If the target has 2 shocks, exposure, and conductivity, my next priority is get my mana to full. As you can see, my mana is full. I'm good to go. This would be a perfect moment for me to Tempest and then do my arc. So I sit here, my mana is full, I'm good to go, I'm ready, and boom, my whole mana just drained, and there's the 13 million damage combo. That's how you do it. That's it. From here, what do we do now? All right, cool. I'm going to step out. I'm going to suck down my mana potions, try to get back up to full. As soon as I'm back up to full, cast an Orb of Storms, go back to my Tempest, and blap, hit him again. And that's essentially the combo. That's it. Now, as with all things Path of Exile related, there are probably going to be a multitude of questions, comments, and concerns as to what to do in certain scenarios because everyone's at a different part in their journey. Leave your comments below. Come by my stream, ask me there. I'm going to be streaming Diablo 4 here for probably like the next week because that's what I built this channel off of. It's not a bad game. I enjoy it. But I will still answer any Path of Exile related questions. So come on in, ask anything. I promise I will answer. I promise I will do my best to actually help you out as best as I can. As well, you can come by to Discord. The link will be in the description below for that. The planners are in the description below. Now, in this planner, you are going to notice that I am going to be running 2 legendary diamonds being From Nothing and Prism of Beliefs. You do not need those in order for this build to function. They are just super giga upgrades. What you need is that crit hit chance. And that crit hit chance does not require specific unique gems or anything like that. You just need to get your crit high enough through the tree and through some of the sapphires, and you'll be good to go. Other than that, I have nothing else for you. I wish you the best of luck in your boss killing journeys. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Operator Otter